It was a quiet Sunday morning in suburban Ohio. The sun stretched lazily across Maple Street, kissing the roofs of identical houses where church bells rang faintly in the distance. Inside one of those houses, a pot of coffee boiled over. "David, I told you to take the trash out last night." Laura's voice cracked through the kitchen like a whip. Her husband, still half asleep and fumbling for his phone, blinked. "I was tired." "Laura, I'll do it after Mass." "After Mass?" "The whole garage smells like rotten milk." Their teenage son, Ethan, tiptoed past them, pretending not to hear. He'd learned long ago that mornings like this were dangerous. Laura slammed a cabinet door. The sound echoed, and with it came the familiar shame that always followed her anger. She didn't mean to yell. She hated the person she became when her temper took over the clenched fists, the sharp tone, the way her family flinched. But somehow, anger had become her second language. And lately, it spoke louder than love. At St. Matthew's Catholic Church, Father Michael's homily that morning was about peace. "True peace," he said, "is not the absence of conflict. It's the victory of love over anger." Mary, our mother, teaches this better than anyone. She watched her son suffer, and yet her heart never turned to rage. Laura shifted uncomfortably in the pew. Her hands were still trembling from the argument. She wanted peace. She wanted to stop feeling like every little thing could light her fuse. But peace felt like a language she'd forgotten how to speak. After Mass, she stopped by the statue of the Blessed Virgin near the exit. Candles flickered at Mary's feet, casting soft shadows across her serene face. A child's handwritten note was tucked beneath the statue. "Dear Mary, help my mommy and daddy stop fighting." Laura froze. She didn't know whose child had written it, but she could have sworn those words were meant for her. That week, everything seemed to conspire against her. At work, her manager blamed her for a mistake she didn't make. At home, Ethan left dirty dishes everywhere. The washing machine broke. David worked late. And on Friday night, after another small argument about bills, Laura snapped. "You never listen to me," she shouted. "All you do is make excuses." David's jaw tightened. "All you do is yell. I can't say anything without you exploding." Something inside Laura cracked. She grabbed her keys, slammed the door, and drove into the night. She didn't know where she was going, only that she needed to get away from herself. Rain began to fall, the kind that turns streets into mirrors. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up. At a red light, she saw a small chapel glowing faintly in the storm. The sign read, "Our Lady of Peace." She pulled in. Inside, the chapel was empty except for the sound of rain tapping against stained glass. A single candle burned near the statue of Mary, casting a golden halo over her gentle eyes. Laura sank into a pew. For the first time in months, she didn't try to pray with words. She just sat there shaking, crying, breathing. "Why can't I stop being angry?" she whispered. In her silence, she felt something stir, not a voice, but a knowing, a calm, motherly whisper in her heart. "You cannot fight fire with fire, my child, only with water." She thought of her own words earlier that week, sharp, burning, bitter, and she realized she'd been fighting every injustice, every small slight, every moment of imperfection, with the fire of her pride. "Teach me," she whispered. "Please, Teach me how to stop. That night marked the beginning of a quiet transformation. Saturday morning. David spilled coffee on her freshly mopped floor. Normally, she'd have exploded. But she remembered Mary's whisper water, not fire. Laura took a deep breath, counted to 10, and said, "Let's clean it up together." David looked at her, startled, then smiled. "Okay." When frustration crept in again, she whispered a short prayer. "Lord, grant me your peace." It felt small at first, like tossing a pebble into an ocean. But even small ripples spread. At work, a coworker criticized her in front of others. Her face flushed hot with anger. Then she remembered the cross. Christ had been insulted, mocked, misunderstood, and yet loved. So she responded calmly, "Thank you. I'll check that again." The coworker's face softened. "I didn't mean to sound harsh. Sorry." Day for the mirror. That evening, she apologized to Ethan. "I know I've yelled too much. I want to change." The boy's eyes widened. "You mean it?" "I do. I want our home to feel safe again." He hugged her. Awkward but real. For Laura, it felt like heaven cracked open just a little. Add adoration. She saw her anger for what it truly was, not power, but pain. Every outburst had roots: exhaustion, fear of failure, guilt. She wrote in her journal, "Lord, I can't heal myself, but you can." Day 6, the offering. She offered her next irritation, a rude driver, a long grocery line, as a prayer for someone else's peace. Each moment of restraint became an act of love. Day 7, the choice. On Sunday, she lit a candle beneath Mary's statue again. "I'm not perfect," she whispered, "but I'm trying." The flame flickered, and she smiled. This time, she didn't feel unworthy. She felt held. A month later, her biggest test came. Ethan got into a fight at school after another student insulted him. The principal called. "He'll be suspended for 3 days." When they got home, Laura's anger surged. "What were you thinking?" "Ethan?" He shouted back. "You don't understand. He said Dad's never around and you're always angry." Her heart broke. The old Laura would have lectured him, raised her voice. But the new Laura, the one Mary was forming, did something different. She sat down. "You're right," she said softly. "I've given you that example, and I'm sorry." He blinked, confused. "You're sorry?" "Yes, but we can do better. Both of us. We can start again." Ethan's shoulders slumped in relief. "I'll try to." "Mom." That night, for the first time in years, they prayed the rosary together. Their voices were awkward, hesitant, but heaven listened. Months passed. Laura still had moments of irritation, but something fundamental had shifted. She learned the power of silence, of small prayers whispered through clenched teeth, of walking away instead of lashing out. Her family noticed. Even her coworkers commented, "You've changed, Laura. You seem peaceful." She'd smile. "Not me. Just grace." One afternoon, while volunteering at the parish soup kitchen, a woman cursed loudly when she was told there was no more food. Laura felt the old anger rise, the urge to snap back, to defend. But she stopped herself. Instead, she touched the woman's shoulder gently. "I understand. Honey, wait here. I'll find something." Minutes later, she returned with a plate of warm bread and fruit. The woman began to cry. "Thank you. I'm just so tired." Laura smiled. "Me too. But we'll be okay." And she meant it. That evening, at home, she found David fixing a loose hinge on the kitchen cabinet, the same cabinet she had slammed months ago. He looked up. "Remember when you almost broke this door?" She laughed softly. "I remember everything." He put his hand over hers. "I'm proud of you. I'm still learning." "Me too," he said. Maybe we both needed a little peace. They shared a quiet dinner. No yelling. No tension, just conversation. Outside, the first snow began to fall, muffling the world in white silence. Weeks later, Father Michael invited Laura to speak at the women's retreat. "I think your story could help others," he said. She hesitated. "I'm not a saint." Neither was Peter when he started preaching. So that Saturday, she stood before a small crowd of women mothers, wives, daughters, and told her story. She spoke of rage and guilt, of tears and grace, of how Mary had taught her to turn anger into love. When she finished, the room was silent. Then a woman in the back stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I needed this. I yelled at my son this morning before I came here. I thought God was done with me." Laura walked toward her and hugged her. "No one is too far gone," she whispered. "Not if we start with a prayer." That night, Laura returned to the chapel where it all began, Our Lady of Peace. The same candles still burned. She knelt, the quiet filling her like a gentle tide. "Thank you, Mother," she whispered, "for teaching me to put out the fire." And deep inside, she understood. The fire hadn't disappeared, it had changed form. It was no longer a fire that destroyed. It was a fire that warmed. The fire of love. Anger is not evil by itself. It's a cry for justice. A signal that something is wrong. But when anger becomes the master, it blinds the heart to love. Through Mary's way silence, prayer, patience, anger is not erased, but transformed. Laura's story isn't about perfection. It's about progress, about choosing peace even when every nerve wants war. And in doing so, she found what every soul longs for, freedom. What about you? Have you ever let anger control your words or decisions? Have you witnessed injustice and struggled between speaking truth and keeping peace? Do you believe love can truly overcome the fire of rage? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you see anger and forgiveness working in your own life? In your family? In our world today? Let this be more than a story. Let it be a conversation about the violence, the pain, and the healing we all long for. Because peace doesn't begin in governments or laws. It begins in hearts, one choice at a time.